Hi, I'm Michael Weatherly.
And I'm Cote and Michael.
And this is Off Duty. I love it when we do that. When we do it together like that, it makes me so happy when we both say it simultaneously. Well, today's episode is season 3, episode 12. Boxed In, baby. It is so good. That's right. It is a standout episode from season 3. There's no question. We are both very fond of our guest today. We have a standout guest. And I would say he is an MVP of the show. He is maybe unsung in terms of you don't see him in front of the camera, but behind the camera, a director I've made, gosh, I don't know, like 100 episodes of television with, Dennis Smith.
We're really excited to have Dennis.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you to talk to Dennis?
Well, I haven't seen him in a while, so it's going to be a 10.
It's a full 10 for me as well. Anyway, I want to give you a little background on who Dennis Smith is. He, besides being an amazing human, has directed a slew of NCIS episodes, a slew meaning over 100 of the franchise. He's directed JAG episodes, a ton of NCIS Los Angeles, not to mention Bull, the show that I did with him.
How many did he do there?
A lot. 25 or something.
Wow.
I don't know. He's been so integral to making NCIS what it is, and we are so excited to be talking about this wonderful episode, Boxed In, with him. But you have to understand, 1,000 episodes of NCIS, the franchise, have aired. He did 100 of them. That's 10%
of all
of the whole
NCIS universe. That's a lot.
Okay. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Welcome to Off Duty, an NCIS rewatch podcast. Today on the show, Season 3, Episode 12, Boxed In. While investigating at a port, Tony and Ziva encounter unexpected criminal activity. They become trapped inside a shipping container. Gibbs and McGee, with the help of Ducky and Abby, find not only their teammates, but also the bad guys. I would like to give you a little context about when this episode aired. You know how we like to talk about the context of the air date?
Yeah.
Okay, for context.
Thank you.
This episode aired January 10th, 2006, which is also my oldest son's birthday.
Oh.
January 10th. He would have been turning 10. And I actually remember his birthday party that year because I sang and he got very embarrassed. I pulled out my guitar and sang a song. So what happened on that day, besides my son's birthday? Ellen Johnson Sirleaf inaugurated as president of Liberia, making her the first woman to be elected as a head of state in Africa. Very impressive. 30 Rock premiered its first episode. Tina Fey, Hey, Hey, Hey.
So good.
Alec
Such
Baldwin.
A great show.
And here's the thing, and I this is super, super interesting. High School Musical premiered.
Oh, wow. And then we had Zac Efron on the show. Remember?
We had him. He was on, I think, before it aired, right?
It was about to air.
It was about to air.
It was a big topic.
Well, this is the day it aired, January 10th.
Wow.
How about that? On the Disney Channel, which we're not on.
No.
But that's fine. We don't have to
But
be
if
on.
you wanna watch
We don't
more
have to be on
NCIS,
every channel.
You can catch NCIS on Paramount Plus and CBS.
If you want to watch NCIS, all you really need is something with a screen, and it's probably on.
Anywhere in the world.
And now it's a podcast. All right, I'm going to give you the episode synopsis here. Okay, while searching a Senegalese ship that they believe is being used to smuggle small arms, TIVA, Tony and Ziva, are captured and locked in a container while the team tries to discover their whereabouts. It's a fantastic episode.
It's one of my favorite episodes, actually. And we had so much fun. And we will definitely get into it with Dennis.
With no further ado, let us bring Dennis Smith onto the show.
Dennis Smith.
These are my off-duty glasses. The show's called Off Duty.
I like that.
Welcome to Off Duty with that laugh. Come on now. That's a good way. That's a good way to welcome you all.
Especially this one, because I'm Michael Weatherly.
And I'm Cote and Michael.
And today our very special guest is Dennis Smith.
By the way, how many did you direct?
Oh, over 100 of all the NCISs, but probably about 65, 66 of what we refer to as the mothership.
Yes.
So we call this part the dissection. Or the dissection. What?
What?
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you're getting dissected, you've died. I don't know. I didn't come up with this part. But I like it. All right, let's punch in on this. So I'm going to go in our Wayback Machine. Do you remember, because you did some JAGs, so you had worked with Don.
Right.
I remember your first episode in season 1. And I just remember that you
early season 1, or
that Don, you had to reshoot because the guys weren't doing push-ups.
They weren't doing the push-ups correctly.
And so Don had everybody come back in. He's like, that's not the way, and if you actually watch guys in the military, they don't do their push-ups at the same time. But with This Is TV, and Don one time made us reshoot a scene in the squad room because Gibbs hadn't locked his gun in the drawer or something. And he came in after we were in coverage and he goes, what are you doing? That's not it. So we had to go back and reshoot the master. And so I just want to hear your memories of first coming onto the show. And then, because we're going to talk about Boxed In from season 3.
Which is, by the way, one of our favorite episodes.
I wanted to just
mine too, for so many reasons.
I just wanted to go back for a second into your origins with NCIS. And
let me take you back to my first meeting, Don Belisario, which is I was being brought in to do an episode of JAG. And Don was always one of those guys to me. He was kind of a bigger than life character. He was the one sitting under the no smoking sign in his directing chair with a big cigar going. He just bucked all the rules. And I first met him. I went to his office with Mark Horowitz, and I was being introduced to Don, who again was, he was the Don, and walked into the office, and Don started asking me some questions, and I'd answer questions, and then Don would go back to his desk, and Mark Horowitz would look over at me and just go, just give me a little reassuring nod, like, you're doing fine. Just don't say too much. Let him do the talking. Just answer, like a lot of yeses and nos would be good. So I met Don, and then I did my first episode of NCIS. And Don felt like I got the show, I got the style of the show, and he told the producers, he says, book Dennis for as many episodes as he wants to do. And that was the train leaving the station, so to speak.
Yeah, I can fast forward to the light blue shirt that I had made for your 50th episode.
Yeah, I still have mine too.
And that was quite a day when I discovered that this was going to be, but for the people at home, if you're acting on a show and you're in every day, it's 8 days, maybe 9, maybe 10 per episode. To make one episode, 8 days. But then you start the next one. Not so if you're directing. You do 7 days of prep, 8 days of shooting, and then several days of editing.
Yeah, 4 days.
And I feel like you were there on set always, because you were always prepping for the next.
So it's like 20 days.
Right, because at the end of the day, how many were you allowed to do? I mean, you took as many as you could get, but that meant that you were maybe working on 10, 9, 8, how many?
I was doing 6 to 8 episodes a season.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And you went up and did Fringe in Vancouver, and you would do other things. And your background with David Kelly, he was really the guy, David Kelly, who, does all this stuff now, married to Michelle Pfeiffer, extraordinarily talented fella.
Beautiful woman.
But Picket Fences, where you met Lauren Holly.
Yes.
Storyboat.
Yes. I have lots of Lauren Holly stories.
So and before we get into Boxed In, because I do want to dissect Boxed In.
Yeah, me too.
But I want the people at home to really understand the origin story of Dennis Smith. You came into the business through being a cameraman. And if you watch a movie called The
Purple
Dale.
Rain.
No, The Dale. The Dale.
It's just cut.
Oh, the documentary, The Dale Car, yes.
You're in the documentary because you were the cameraman who you were involved, and was that Tucker Carlson's father who was investigating the story?
Yes, yeah, Dick Carlson.
Dick Carlson was Dennis.
How did you get started? Did you get started as a?
I was an apprentice news cameraman, which you were a film loader at night. You were an assistant cameraman during the day, going out with the news crews, helping them set up and break down, and pick up my dry cleaning. And my wife's coming into the airport, and can you go pick her up? You were sort of a gopher in the news department. And if you did that job for a couple of years, after 2 years, you could be eligible in the union to be hired as a news and documentary cameraman, which is what I did. And then I went through a period of about 6 years where I won a lot of awards. and I felt like I was like 27 years old, and I felt like I'd peaked and there was no other challenges for me there. So that's when I quit and started doing studio work and went into the studios doing Steadicam, underwater work, aerial work to get around to meet DPs and directors that I wanted to work with. And that's when I met Michael Pressman, who moved me up from camera operator to DP on Picket Fences.
Right.
And then toward the fourth season of Picket Fences, Tom Skerritt and Kathy Baker came to me and they said, "We think you should be directing."
Wow.
And I said, "We think you should tell the producers."
Do you know Michael Pressman's father, David Pressman, is a director as well, was a director?
Yes,
and
yes.
David
Huge
Pressman,
soap opera guy.
And he directed me on the soap opera. And David Pressman was so frustrated with my inability to memorize lines. He just found it inconceivable that I was continuing to work. And
You were that good.
I was that good. And, still am. I confound expectations. So I'm curious, that kind of prestige television, because that had Emmy nominations for the show, but also for you individually.
Yes.
And when you're working, because NCIS, God bless everyone there, but there's not an Emmy in sight. We're not exactly on magazine covers. There's no award shows. But when you're at the practice, when people get big on a show, and for some of those actors and actresses, it was a moment where they were like, when you're doing that kind of show, do you see the difference between that and something like NCIS, where we're up in Santa Clarita just chugging through our days, and it's like, does it qualitatively feel different, or is a show a show?
I think a show is a show, but working with David Kelly at that particular time, I mean, he was called one of the 5 most influential people in the history of television, along with like Edward R. Murrow. So it was a great time to be working there with him. And, I never quite understood NCIS, as popular as it was and still is worldwide, why, we were never recognized by the Emmys, by the Golden Globes, by the,
So this is a perfect transition point to talk about why it's so popular. And I think Boxed In has the ingredients, the real salient ingredients, like...
Let me rephrase the question. Why are you still on top of me?
If you're going to make a cake, you need the flour and the butter and the sugar. And this show has the flour and the butter and the sugar.
I watched it last night and I thought I was so entertained.
And it is so layered in the Tony Ziva relationship.
We need to get out of here, Tony.
Yeah, I heard that the first 50 times you said it. Hey, you're not claustrophobic.
From the moment they're locked inside this container, and Ziva wears all of her emotions like right out in the open on her shoulder, and Tony's the one that sort of keeps them contained. But it's he has the same concerns.
Yeah.
But he's great at covering.
Let me rephrase the question. Why are you still on top of me? So we have parental moments in that. For instance, Tony makes a reference to the piano lesson and his mother, and has a slip. He has a slip, and
it's a
Tony
really good slip.
asks, "What's your favorite color?" And when did you realize your father wasn't perfect, or whatever?
So give me something. Happiest moment. Most embarrassing moment. First time you realized Daddy wasn't perfect.
Oh, and she just walked away from that one.
But those pivots,
it was huge.
Each one of those additive things. But then you have all this badinage, as it's called, like all the sort of witty banter, it depends on your scale of wit, but I think some of it's really fun. And you get the movie references and the enthusiasm and, okay, Bugsy, let's all go, just the silliness. And then the physical flirtation and eye contact, physical contact, lying on top of, Tony, or he's holding you up and while the thing is moving around.
And what people don't know is that, by the way, none of it was moving. We were playing like we had to move because
what we called the Star Trek.
Yeah,
everyone go left.
Exactly.
Everyone go right.
Yeah.
Everyone fall back.
It looks actually. I was like, my God, I remember shooting that, and it looked okay.
It looked real.
And you were like, hit, boom. And we would have to do this like, fake fall and all that stuff.
Now, was it
because
a bottle
was
show?
Stationary.
Was it a bottle show?
Yeah, it was like 35 pages inside the container, and then a bunch of stuff happening on the outside.
And
to
the
keep it moving.
container was...
Can you explain what a bottle show is?
A bottle show... Well, Dennis, you've done many bottle shows. Tell our viewers.
A bottle show is when you get in trouble during the season financially, and you need to do something on the cheap that has like not a lot of sets, not a lot of locations, and so they call it a bottle show.
And by the way, we had a couple of really good bottle shows on NCIS, but this one, for me, was such an entertaining one. It was such a fun show.
And there's so many wonderful moments of like Michael said, of the banter, but also there were at least 3 great moments for both of you and both those characters that were so vulnerable, and moments where they expose themselves to each other. And these are 2 people, by the way, that I always knew in the back of my mind that in spite of the banner, in spite of the push, which Ziva did from the first moment she walked into the squad room and sat down across from Tony, there was like she was hitting the serves back.
Oh yeah,
like
she was suggestively slouching.
Yeah,
suggestively slouching.
But she was hitting them back. She was never a victim of Tony's banner. She was always the one who hit the ball back.
And always, like, I was amazed because I was watching it last night, and I was like, wow, it was overtly very forward. Like, she was very forward.
Yeah.
Like, the things she would say, like, were very sexual, very confident in her sexuality, very much out there, like the things she would reveal, she was unafraid.
Well, you didn't seem to mind when we were undercover.
That might have something to do with the fact that you were naked.
Perhaps if it were warmer in here.
We were younger, you know what I mean? Well, I was much younger.
Yeah, it was your first half season too.
Sure, but it's like what a way to define a character. That kind of like confidence when it came to her sensuality, sexuality, and how she could toy. You like the air conditioner. And you've revealed a lot about yourself, Ziva. Or did you reveal about something? And she just looks at you. Or the whole thing about the fantasy, it involves you and a sumo wrestler, and you walking away. We don't want to do that.
Enough.
It's such a funny moment.
So did you were talking a little bit about the TIVA.
Of it all?
Yeah, Hamster 5.
I'm trying to think. I didn't look at this. This is a factoid I should have looked up. Was this the first episode of that season 3 that you directed with me and Cody? No, the one with
no, because
I did
Cody's very first episode.
You did.
Yes,
the slouchy.
That's
yes.
right. Suggestively slouchy.
Yeah, slouchy.
Yes.
So
and by the way, it was brilliant. That whole exchange. I watched that again.
That makes sense.
Two last night because it was such, again, like a vulnerable moment for Tony admitting that he was talking to his dead partner.
Right.
When he's just met this, person who's come into the room and he has no idea who she is, but there's sort of this openness with her where he felt comfortable.
I'm Special Agent Tony DiNozzo. I wasn't playing charades. I was remembering my partner.
Naked?
No.
Did you see because you knew me, you'd done seasons 1 and 2. Did you see a new gear in what I was doing in a certain, because I'd built a lot of confidence over the first couple of years. I'm just wondering, because as a director, and I was saying this to Eric Christian Olsen, when I didn't hear cut, and then all of a sudden there would just, this head would poke out in the squad room door, and a little bit of a Dennis, and then I'd be like, all right. And it's like, going again, reset, back to 1, props.
You always had a way also of coming up to us actors and communicating what you wanted us to do. You lowered your voice and you had this really kind of like intimate, conversational, never like, I want you to, like there was nothing about it that was
She was a good agent.
She was a good agent. But you were just really... Anyway, it worked. It worked for a person like me. I was just like, I always felt like there was like this little secret we were sharing, and it was going to be our thing, and we were working on it together.
Yeah,
And so
right.
it was it was very effective. It was very effective, and it made you feel like there was somebody there who was collaborating with you, but who wanted you to do it, of course, better, but also like, let's play. There was a play thing that you always had that was like, let's play, let's do this like this, and I just really enjoyed it.
So talk about when you get on set. What's the Dennis Smith? Obviously,
the Montessori approach.
The Montessori approach. But as that developed, you developed a style. You watched other directors as an operator and as a DP. So but every director has their own style. I mean, Jimmy Whitmore Jr. has a very bombastic. He's what we call a monitor humper. He holds the monitor. And he's watching the scene, and he's inside,
so agitated,
and then he killed your brother.
You could be in the middle of a very, 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 very vulnerable scene, and you could be in the middle of the scene, and all you hear from the back of a video village is no, I won't, I won't. But it's like you just hear, you loved him. You loved him, and there's a part of you that goes, I could see how this works. Right now, I'm not sure it's helping.
And the thing is that Jim Whitmore is a fantastic actor, the son of a fantastic actor. And
also
Whitmore
like a
understands.
Really successful director.
Yes.
And a terrific human.
But every director, like Arvin Brown from the stage, from the theater, really thinks about staging and blocking and scene dynamics and what the values are. You have somebody like Tom Wright, who's an artist, who sees things pictorially and visually.
And oh my God, the greatest thing about him is watching how he draws out every scene and every shot and everything. It's like a cartoon,
So how did you find your Dennis Smith Montessori? We call it Montessori because you can explain.
I always tried to do as little as possible, as you two know, my hobby's flying. And the more sophisticated the plane, the less you have to do. And I feel it's the same way working with really talented actors is they know the characters, they know the story. In most cases, they've read the whole script. Sometimes it's only their scenes.
Oh yeah.
But I felt like what I'm doing is I'm planting seeds. And in planting those seeds, you're like being a good psychologist. You're not telling anybody what the issue is. You're helping them discover it. And when they discover it on camera, it's the most amazing thing there is. And that's what I try and do. I try and help people discover it. And I don't tell people what to do. I have an idea what the scene should be, but I'm always open to let it take me somewhere else if it feels authentic and feels real.
And there's something about the gift that you're giving a performer is authorship. You're giving, like you said, when they discover that for themselves. So then there's an autonomy and an ownership, because so much of acting, stand there, wear this, don't do that, lift up your chin, make sure don't touch your microphone.
Find a light, find a light.
I know.
So you live in this world where you're stripped of your autonomy, because every department, every truck that's parked in the alleyway is there because of you. The lights, the camera, the sound, the wardrobe, every single thing is there to capture you. And so you can become very self-conscious performers. And then there's a lot of performers that, in order to cover that self-consciousness or the magic trick, is they have all these techniques and devices and gimmicks that they come up with that makes them look natural. But there's no real discovery, and that you get that dead shallow shark eye performance. But what you're talking about is this huge gift. And I find it in blocking, because blocking is
You've always
staging.
talked about that, and I've always been like, it's fascinating to me how you used to always say to me, Cody, I rehearse. I mean, I show up and I read the lines and all that stuff, but really, I learn the script and I learn the text while I'm blocking.
Yes,
and I was like, wow, that's fascinating, because, and by the way, in the theater, I learned the same way. I just had the luxury of time. So what you did is you crunched it. Right?
Well,
you
Dennis
would come to set and you would come with your sides,
5 times,
and then you would rehearse a lot. And then during that rehearsal, which, by the way, a lot of people don't know, it's not a very long process. So kudos to you for being so fast. That's the thing that I was always amazed by.
So
I was like,
to me,
my God, I come from another world.
Memory is emotional.
Right.
And so people sometimes say, oh, that's incredible. You have this great memory. And it's not that I have a great memory. It's just that I'm very emotional. So I remember shit.
Really?
Don't make me cry. I will cry right now.
Right now. Your eyes are already very misty.
No, that's because I had too much beer last night. But I was so excited to see Dennis. I scarfed
Celebrate.
down. Yeah. But I really want to make a meal out of this because boxed in, you're thinking, for instance, the scene with the dad.
You don't have to joke about it. It's all right to admit you're scared.
You've obviously never seen a Steve McQueen movie.
We're across from each other on this box. Then we go next to each other, side by side. Then she goes behind and comes around. Then DiNozzo spins around. So
it's a dance.
It's a dance, and you're breaking that up. And if you're just an actor hitting marks and, like, okay, you're going to be there and the phone's going to ring and then you go over here and I want you to sit down and you just feel like you're being told what to do. I never felt that.
And especially in this episode, I felt like what you were talking about, Dennis.
Staging was so important.
The staging was so important, and you really wanted to discover those moments, those character moments, the moments when I really wanted to ask you about that moment with your mom, the piano thing, when you said, well, she was. What was that moment about? Because it jumped at me last night, and I was like, that's such a great character revealing moment. What was that moment about? It was about your mother playing piano?
I used to play piano.
But not anymore?
My mother forced me to take lessons from this woman who used to hit me with a ruler.
Yes, but she died when I was 8.
Right. So that's the thing.
Yeah. Very good stuff in that episode. And so here's the thing that people don't realize.
There were so many of them too.
Yeah, but it's jam-packed. The writing is so good.
It's so rich.
The writing was really, really good. I remember. Oh my God, we had a field day doing that. Remember, we couldn't get through.
Look at them all.
Look at them all. And then for years, in fact, when I downloaded the episode last night, I immediately thought, do you know that
I
immediately went there and I was like, oh my God,
you can watch episodes of NCIS on Paramount Plus and CBS, new episodes on CBS. And you don't want to miss them. You don't want to miss them. And the past of NCIS, there's a present of NCIS, and there's a future of NCIS. It's very exciting.
And we're talking to one of the people that may be a part of that universe.
Whenever I was watching the show, I was sitting there watching it with my lady friend Tess, and she goes, those two should have had their own show. And I went, yeah. Yeah.
In a way, though, we were so enjoying ourselves so thoroughly. You can see in the episode, and when you have to pee at the end or maybe poop, I don't know.
Pee, definitely. It was pee.
That was so hilarious.
The one night. I used to do that in college all the time, and my friends were like, oh, come on, do that again. How can you do that? Just lower one eye. And I was like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's so
hilarious.
Funny. Yeah, and it was, the kick in the...
Hey, what are you doing?
You two okay?
No.
Oh, that was great, because it was so unexpected.
That actor in that episode is so good.
Yeah, Daniel.
I mean, he was fantastic in that episode because that could have been played so many ways, but he was so like, oh, I'm so open and I'm so good at my job and I'm so willing to help out NCIS. And Gibbs, what do you need? You never see it coming. And at the end when he's just like, come on, guys, and it's like, it really is like.
I think this is another thing about this episode and about the series in general. And maybe it's why it's not taken seriously or seen as a kind of, because it's very tightly scripted and it's incredibly complicated in terms of how it all unfolds and the mystery and all the layers of character revelation. And when Abby at the end hugs Ziva, that's like, oh, she approves.
Yeah,
we're getting that stamp.
Absolutely.
We're discovering all of these things, but the very center of it, of course, is Gibbs. And maybe people they don't realize how good it is because it's like pistachios. I think somebody once said, you just can't stop eating them. Once you watch an episode of NCIS, you get to the end of it,
true, though.
You can go back and just start watching it again.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not, and maybe that it's not just evergreen in a FBI Law and Order kind of way, in the Dick Wolf kind of evergreen way, because there's not a lot of character revelation in. I mean, I don't want to dismiss that whole, but NCIS is lumped in with a genre of crime procedurals, and it ticks all those boxes, but it's like not really a crime procedural. It's a workplace comedy in parts, and it's a romantic thriller in parts, and it's like sometimes it's like a horror movie, like it's a mashup of these things.
A lot of things, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that anyone who's a fan of the show, I have people now who come up and say, "Oh my God, you're that guy from NCIS. I almost didn't recognize you because you got so old." But
did that happen last night?
Yes, but the comment is, "You were my COVID show," and these are young people. They're in their 20s,
yeah,
and they were like, "Well, I've watched everything now, so this has 400 episodes. I'll watch that."
Rediscovered, and
they
like all the time by the next generation,
and that isn't just, it's the mistake that a lot of people make about NCIS too, which is like somebody's just chewing on a straw, like, my favorite show is them NCIS is weird to do. It's like as if somebody, that's who watches the show. And
it's so diverse.
It's so strange because I sit next to best-selling authors, PhDs, doctors, lawyers, and it's, sometimes it's like, oh, I got cancer. I was going through chemotherapy, and that was like my show. Where does this come from?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about that?
I think it's the nuclear family that really drove the show, and the relationships. It just happened to be NCIS and Abby's lab and autopsy and all those things were just places, because what really drove it is the relationships, and I even saw in that episode, like Gibbs got softer over the years. There was a more intense, driven Gibbs in that episode.
He was really driven, and he was very much,
never apologize. It's a sign of weakness.
Yeah, it's a sign of weakness. That's like so crazy that somebody would say that. Even today, like I was just like, oh, God, that's like a crazy thing to say.
Exactly. But then on the opposite end of that, out at the container yard, whenever he was trying to console McGee and let him know that, look, they're not dead, because if they were dead, I would know it. There was such a fatherly
yeah, it really was.
moment, and he even patted him on the shoulder, like it's going to be okay. I mean, it was really moving.
Talk about exploring relationships, because you mentioned the bit with Abby in the end when she hugs Ziva, and Abby and Ziva had a lot of really great moments on that show, but that's one of the first moments.
I'm making him dinner tonight. What was that for? I'm glad you're not dead.
And last night it jumped at me that Abby came over and hugged Ziva, and something really funny happened to Ziva. Like she almost gets uncomfortable.
Yes,
like it's the first, with men, not uncomfortable at all.
Right.
Like totally in her power, totally in her. But this Abby Shuto thing that comes at her, which is just like this heart chakra open, like no pretense, no nothing. It destabilizes her.
Yeah.
It kind of puts her in this awkward, like, I don't know what to do with myself, which is very funny because with men, it's not like that at all. Like she knows exactly how to handle men.
Sure.
But she does not know how to handle Abby. And it's a really funny bit. How they come together and how they're so different. How those emotions, how they process emotions is so different. And, I watched it happen last night, and I was like, usually most of the interactions I'm watching and tracking are the ones with Donoso, because they're the ones that I feel reveal the most about the character. It's the same thing with Mark. It's the same thing with Gibbs. But this particular moment, which was a small bit within the scope of the episode, was so revealing. It was so much fun to see that. And funny that you're surprised even today by the things that like another person can bring to the table and how that energy will somehow spin your character in another direction and reveal something that we don't know about them.
And I think a real, and we're going to go behind the curtain for a second and reveal something. Having done a lot of television now, myself, 500 episodes of whatever.
My Lord. What a beast.
And the soap opera that I did, I did like 500 episodes of that soap opera as well. But so it would be 1,000. When you work in this medium, when you make a movie, you go on location and you have a showmance maybe, which is what happens when you're on location and you have a romance as a thing.
No, really?
It happens. I married a co-star. So you have, you can have these on location. You can have things. But when you're living in Los Angeles and you have your home that you go to, your apartment or whatever, generally speaking, people have their lives, and then you come to the studio and you do your work, and then you go home to your life. And you're sort of not on location. But this is a weird thing about NCIS. We were kind of on location.
And we were all living together kind of on the same...
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we were...
Holly and you and me and Lauren Holly would hang out. And I don't know if people understand how strange this is, but we would hang out.
I mean, after 12, 13, 14, 15,
what else
16
did we have
hours,
to say to each other?
I mean, really, you had nothing else to say, and it was like, oh, let's meet at the wine bar.
And we'd go to the wine bar, or Paulie would knock on the door with a 6-pack, and you'd
a
be
bunch
like,
of
oh,
doggies.
And a bunch of doggies. And then we would go on Sundays and have lunch over at D-Dog's house, at Den Dog 50s.
And that's one thing, like, I have to say that for me, especially that first year, which was such a fantastic year on so many levels, but you provided a little bit of a home, like that kind of stability thing.
Right.
And I think you knew that, and I think that's why you opened up your home, and in many ways you were such a special director, not only because you were there so much and because you were one of our directors, regular directors, but on a personal level, you were also a friend, and you were extending something that I think I personally am not going to talk for you. But you were extending something that I needed, which was a home.
Mm-hmm. But it comes up through the show, is what I really feel. Like you sense that the ease with which we all hang out with each other.
Yeah. Did it happen for you? Did it happen with other people too in other shows, or would you say this happened very organically here?
No. This was very organic, and the fact that we wanted to hang out with each other. We met on
parents,
holidays,
your
kids, because I don't think people think that, okay, well, Thanksgiving and Christmas, you were in town, your family was out of the country, you were a single dad, and your family was on the East Coast,
right?
And it was so much fun to have you over at the house with my parents and my kids, because I was a single dad with 4 small kids who still talk about and love the two of you.
But that year was so filled with, and the Boxed In episode, we shot part of it down in Long Beach or San Pedro or wherever that.
The container yard.
I don't think we were there, because I think we were at the studio the entire time.
No, we were outside for the gun battle. And walking around.
We were. But then it was like Gibbs and McGee, they were sort of like there. And then we had a couple of days off, I remember.
And the warehouse at the end was also shot the night of, after we shot the stuff in the morning. And then, because I think if you watch a show like this and you break it down the way a first AD and a director will break it down, all the scenes in Abby's lab are shot in a row. All the scenes in Autopsy are shot in a row.
So it's a day in Autopsy, a day in,
or like you'll spend the morning in the squad room.
Then you go to MTAC.
And then you go to MTAC, which is actually just the next stage. It's not up the stairs. The doors are up the stairs, but those doors go nowhere. You actually have to go. And then Abby's lab is on the next stage over. And then the evidence garage is the stage after that. And I think that when we started watching the shows at lunch, it became very bonding because we would all sit together.
And I mean, you were so geeky, and I mean this in the best of ways. At times during that third year, he would say, Cody, come over, let's watch the show together. And I was like, why would you do that? We just shot it. I was like, we know what. I was like, and he would say, no, you have to come and we'll watch it together. And Michael would be like literally the guy that would turn, like, we would set up, he would get like popcorn, he would open like a little bottle of wine, and it was like a ceremony, it was like this incredible little moment. And I remember sort of watching him watch the show and being like, oh, okay. And then I was like, I remember being sort of pleasantly surprised by being like, that was a fun show.
Yeah.
And Michael was like a kid in a candy store. He was like, that was great. He was like a true fan of the medium.
Yes. And what I learned how to do on NCIS, which I tell people it took me 13 years to figure out how to do the authentic point of view and essence of my energy going into the point of view of the character. But what I really learned technically was how to lean on the cut. And what that means is...
Explain that. I'm like, lean on the cut.
Do you want to take a stab at lean on the cut?
He just knew... He knew exactly when you were going to cut to him and when you were going to cut to someone else. And he would give you the head turn to them. He was
like an expert in the...
And it's like... in a scene, there are like many little things that are kind of like an act out.
Sure.
Where, you want to hit something a little harder, or you want to not hit it hard and you want to leave them thinking with you. And he was always good about that. By the way, he has the best memory. He can go back and tell you moments and episodes and episode names and what happened and who the guest stars were.
By the way, you were one of the first
shooting.
Directors who we just have
Voyeur's Web,
and we talked about you because
it was banned.
God.
Well, yes, it was. We talked about that too.
Not anymore. It's on Paramount Plus. You can get it.
You can get it.
Voyeur's Web,
but it was banned in some countries.
Sure, but that scene in which you turn the camera, how we started losing our. We started laughing so hard when we were interviewing the bad guy, who turns out to be the bad guy. But and you just played it, and then you just went like this.
Billy Webb got frustrated that we were laughing so hard, and it looked like we blew the scene. So he just rolled. Great. He rolled his Steadicam,
and that's what you used.
Yep. Or maybe he wasn't frustrated. Maybe he was just having fun. But most people would cut around that.
No, you used it. You used the entire laugh and the camera going.
So another thing that I want to point out, and I said this a little bit once before, but it's really worth digging into and articulating. And just we're talking about the technical aspects of making the television, leaning on the cut. But when you are editing, generally, if you're editing a TV show, it's a machine. You are cranking through these days. They get the dailies. You have the script. You're the editor. You have the script. And it says, Ziva comes in, says this line. So you start with you go through the dailies, but you're really just looking for the lines. And if somebody says the line wrong, you fast forward to the next take and you grab that line, and you're building the script from what's in the dailies. But I sensed on NCIS that the editors and the directors cut to what they shot. So you, instead of cutting to script, you cut to footage. You cut from the dailies. What happened in the scene might not be here. So you got to watch what happened in the world.
You have to watch every take, every angle, because I wasn't always concerned about getting everything I wanted in the head-on angle, because it could be the side angle that's coming around. It could be the one that's over the back. It could be the one where like, Rosemary's Baby, where you're sort of leaning around to, try and see their face and see their expression.
Right. Yeah. Do you have a favorite NCIS episode?
I have many favorites, and for different reasons. I like Boxed In a lot because there was so much going on, and there were so many layers, and you're in an enclosed space, so it's very challenging blocking-wise. I love the one where you were being held captive, and
Truth or Consequences. Season 7, episode 1
is on the top of my list.
Truth or Consequences is my favorite episode.
Couldn't live without you, I guess.
So you will die with me.
And Don let us go.
Yep.
I mean, he let us, he let us, to his credit, he let us play. Mm-hmm. And he trusted us to do a lot of the stuff that we came up with that became a staple of the show.
You came to my trailer, and do you remember your request / speech?
Yeah, I said, Michael, take your time. You have a couple hours here before we start shooting, but we're going to start in your direction, and we're going to shoot all 10 pages of you first.
Yes.
Block
So,
shoot, right?
Yep. So,
but I mean, in one take.
Yeah.
Like the whole 10. And you said, it's 360. The camera's going to go all the way around you, so there's nowhere to put your lines. Because I would hide little cheat cards. I don't know if you remember.
I do remember. And wait, didn't you call them origami?
Like
I
had origami,
origami like in your pocket, and when the camera would turn around, you'd grab it and you'd see, you'd look at your lines, and then you'd put them away. But you had this remarkable ability to be able to do something like that and never skip a beat. You know, like you were just always present. You just needed as a reminder, and then you were like right on. It was like unlike anything I'd ever seen.
If I didn't know,
challenging day.
It was a little bit of a high wire anytime I had big speeches or big things like that. But my go-to in that one, if I was up on a line, I was under the truth serum. I knew that I was scared to death. But I also...
Are you saying you were using all the elements?
But I also knew that Gibbs was somewhere. That I knew I had the angel somewhere. So I had the confidence of somebody who's like, do whatever you want to me. It's not going to end well for you, but you do whatever you want. So at one point I said, he hit me, and I said, can I get a glass of Chardonnay? Because that would go so well with the taste of blood I have in my mouth or whatever. And they actually cut that into the commercial, the ad lib about asking for a glass of Chardonnay. And I really felt that was when the show, the network knew what they had. And they were cutting trailers for the next week's episode, which I would geek out on as well, because I would watch the cuts. And because in the beginning, I would be like, dude, these people don't even watch the show. They're cutting together these trailers for next week on Navy NCIS. The team encounters the crime is their battlefield. I'm like, this is not the show. You know, but I would do interviews sometimes when people would say, it must be so difficult. You seem to have a very exuberant energy and a sense of humor just to be in a crime procedural all the time. Do you get bored? And I'm like, yeah, you haven't seen the show. I've never been bored on that set. It's how I was able to do 13 years because I didn't get bored. Walking into that squad room, slinging my bag over to the desk, twirling around in the chair. And I was
going to McGee's desk and probably giving him a little hell.
Giving him whatever it was.
It was one of my favorite things. Just, sometimes you walking into the squad room, sitting down, sort of looking around, who can I mess with? And just seeing
it was really interesting.
And seeing it all in the eyes, like you could see the little idea landing
the
and
little
then
wheels spinning.
Cool. And then they get up.
They get up.
Get up.
Always.
They get up.
Yeah.
It was great.
I watched a huge amount of Cary Grant, and a lot of the physicality that I was kind of mimicking. I'm a terrible mimic, so it's a great gift to be a terrible mimic because no one knows who you're imitating. Yeah. So I would do the pratfalls and all that other stuff, but even the physicality of did that just zing me? Am I like? He's always a beat behind. DiNozzo's always just a little bit like, am I behind the only way I can get the edge here is to blow some shit up. I'm going to blow some stuff up. And the only one that sees it is Gibbs is just like, what that thing? God, stop it.
Go back to your room.
And that could have been Mark Harmon as well.
But it was always like, oh, go back to your room.
So when I became a lead on Bull and the titular lead in
you were the number one.
I was looking forward to being Bull on a show called Bull. I didn't ever understand the journey that I must have put Mark Harmon through until I saw what happens when you're number one. When you're number one, people don't tell you things because everyone's protecting you and hiding the truth from you. people are extremely disingenuous, so, not just with facts and truth, but also there's a lot of smoke getting blown, and and then also there's a target on your back because everyone is coming for you. And when I think back to how Harmon handled everybody on that set and handled me, I'm very impressed with.
I remember the phone calls. You would say things like,
he would let me go.
I should call Mark and just like write him a long email or just say how much I've learned from him. And I think you appreciated the teacher so much.
But also he saw me go. He saw what I was doing and knew that there needed to be a leash on me, but he was going to give me some rope on that leash. But he wasn't going to let me off leash. But, and that was always the thing is that...
but you were always fighting to be off leash.
Well, like any good wild dog.
I get it. But that was the tension. And that was sort of the gift and the thing that made it work. Mm-hmm. It's the thing that also we had. There was also tension, and it's the thing that also made it work. It's the thing that made the relationships work.
Shining bright, dancing in the moonlit night, heartbeats running wild, so free. This kid, just you and me. Feel the rhythm, take my hand. Sparkles in a wonderland. Laughter echoes through the air. Together we're a perfect pair.
Well, I always felt like he could be as wacky as he wanted to be and as goofy as he wanted to be, as long as the balance was he's a good agent, and that's why he's there. And there was you
were key in that because we've talked about that before.
Yeah, it would look like what's he doing? That looks so stupid what he's doing, and yet, he's figured out that there's a hidden room there. He's really good.
He is good. He is good. We'd do that sometimes in the squad room. You'd be in the middle of this, riff with McGee and like, and all of a sudden Gibbs would come in. He was like, and present the case or give me evidence or whatever it is that you guys have to do in the squad room, deliver the exposition. And it was just like a boom, like this. Of course, Sean had the bulk of it, which was massive. And awesome. He was so good at it, But you had the drastic changes because what you were doing all the time is that you were like, and then all of a sudden Gibbs would come in and it was a total 180. And then you had to become the really good agent that had to deliver all the information that Gibbs was asking for. Yeah. And that also was pretty fantastic thing to play.
Yeah, reversals are a big thing in creating good scene dynamics. And a reversal is just that. It is, you will be playing one mood or tone and then on a dime, just almost whiplash. And the show, actors do reversals, but the show itself editorially did reversals. You would cut from a very silly scene to this gore in the autopsy or to interrogation where Gibbs is, bringing the fly into the middle of his web and bringing his little billy web, squiggly wiggly web.
Squiggly wiggly web.
And so the last little thing that I was going to get into, I'm sure there's a couple more questions, but the technical part of Billy Webb, of William Webb, very interesting. His contribution to the dynamics of the show.
You've talked about William Webb, right?
Incredible Steadicam operator.
Yes.
Yeah, incredible.
And frustrating to some degree because in the way that I was irreverent, it might be a nice way of saying it. You might say, okay, so Billy, I want to set up, like just a static wide shot back at the squad room. It's night. I don't want the roundy round, which is where the Steadicam goes all the way around with. And just one static wide, and then, the beginning of this scene is just going to be coming off the elevator. We'll use that Steadicam to get us in. I'm not going to need a wide except for the first shot to set it up. And then the last shot's going to be a tableau reverse, looking back at Gibbs alone at his desk, whatever. And then you go to get yourself a cup of coffee, and you get a phone call, and then Suzanne McRobert, our amazing script supervisor, comes over, or maybe Rachel Good showing you some wardrobe, or maybe Billy Bake's got a question about something. And then you see Kratiger like dragging all these cables over, and you see them loading the B dolly into the thing, and you walk back in, and
what's happening here?
What's happening? And there's a huge scrim that they've put up on the thing, and they've changed all that, and they're removing the trans light behind the Navy Yard, and you're going, what is this? Like, well, when we come around with the camera, we're going to do a light switch and a fade, and we need to have a negative fill, and we've got a 40 by coming in, but they have to build it on stage A. And you're like, Billy, static, back of the room. And he's like, and I mean, it would, if
you would in many ways simplify things. You would go in there and you would always be very conscious of time too, which is is a very cool thing, because we were having very long hours. And so then Dennis Smith, when we knew Dennis Smith was coming, we also knew that it was like, we get to go home early. We get to have the most fun.
And they're going to be great episodes.
They're going to be great episodes. We're going to have a lot of fun, but he's going to get us home in a decent time. We're not going to go crazy. We're not going to do a 17-hour day.
And when
we were very much a believer of not going over the 12.
And when you saw that 10. There was something, maybe I'd been a little irritating in the previous episode. Maybe we'd had a hard time with a director, or just a lumpy script or something. When you would come in, I just remember that you would look at your watch and look at me and Cody, and we're maybe having a little bit of a day with each other. And you would say, last scene of the day is a oneer. Because everyone's looking at their watch and thinking, it's a 2-page scene.
And then Daddy would
that's
come in
going to
and
take 2.5 hours to do 2 pages.
I did that a lot.
And you'd say...
You did it a lot.
And we're pre-lit. You'd say, so the minute we get Mark's coverage on this scene, we're going to go over to the elevator.
Rehearse it.
We're pre-lit. Kratz already set it up, and you're just going to bring... And then Billy would be like, oh, I was thinking maybe we could start over by the most wanted wall.
Off the elevator and do a 360
my favorite thing is, at that point, you would take absolute control of the room, and you would go, nope, oneer, and you would walk away. That's it.
And the only thing was, we would walk into the elevator, and then the camera pushes in, and it just stays on us in a 2-shot, and you hear the doors close, but you don't see them, right? And then we have the scene, and then we're blah, 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 blah for 2 pages, back and forth, very emotional, not looking at each other, just looking at the numbers and the thing.
Wait,
and then
you're talking about the same scene I'm thinking
and then
about.
the door, and then you hear the doors open, and then we both exit on the opposite. And I think did we do it twice?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think we did it that long, but you got to set, and then you had 2 actors who were very in their own world,
loaded.
And very loaded with emotions. You were like, I don't think we're going to do this. I think we just need to rehearse it for placement, but you knew exactly how that was going to be shot. And then you looked at both of us, you didn't say much, and you said, we're just going to shoot it. We're just going to shoot it. And then the next thing you know, Michael and I were in an elevator scene, and we had this kind of explosive scene, and then you just let that camera.
It's a lot of trust in your actors,
a lot,
and also
and not trying to manipulate, not trying to push, not trying to. You were like, you understood that you had these 2 people who were coming in with their own understanding of what the scene was. And Michael and I have always had our own process. We don't really discuss scenes before we shoot them.
Yeah.
We don't.
I love you, but I hate you, but I love you, but I hate you, but I love you.
And I hate you. We'd always, sing that song between takes. But so we respected that, and you were one of those directors who saw that, clocked it, and also respected it. And you just allowed us to do the thing that we did.
And that's that agility you were talking about, that flexibility to say, maybe you did want to take one of the walls off and go, French overs, or you wanted to, but you saw what it was, and you thought, if I poke and pull this scene apart and pull these two actors apart, it might suck.
Yeah, and not only that, but it's nice to see the two of you in there together, and there's so much more tension versus cutting around and cutting to close-ups in a scene like that, where you just sit there and you're just like glued to these two people with all of these
and what's going on,
these
and
emotions and
like
stuff
this?
going on. It's like you're not going to turn off the TV. You're not going to go to the refrigerator and get something. You're like glued to your seat.
What about when you would finish a cut? You know what Dennis would do with the cut?
No.
Tell the people at home, Dennis. And this is very unusual, but it goes back to what I was saying. This show is unusual.
You're talking about the director's cut.
The director's cut. Yes. This show is unusual because most people, it's a job. You do your job, but you don't live above the candy store, and you certainly don't do what you would do with the director's cut.
First of all, I was very lucky that Don let a lot of my cuts go as I turned them in, but I would try and position my post-production so that I could send Don my cut on a Friday night, because I knew Friday night he's going to get the episode. He's going to be sitting down with a cocktail, and then I would call his wife, Viv, and I would go, Viv, I got this episode coming your way. I'm sending my cut. I really think you and Don are going to really enjoy it. So I used Viv to
who's lovely, by the way,
who's fantastic, and she was a big fan, and I would call her and say, look, I'm really excited about this episode. Make sure you and Don watch it together and have a nice drink and enjoy it. So I would sort of set myself up for success.
Yes, that is knowing how to play. And you've worked with so many legends in the business, right? But Belisario and they're all unique. Yeah, you would say like David Kelly, and they're
big people. Yeah,
each one has their own. Glenn Gordon, Karen, right?
Yes.
These guys, masters in their own ways. What do you think Don's true, genius was? And because you can't make 4 giant hit shows without.
I think him knowing the family dynamics, like I said earlier, and the characters and how to create that family. I think he was genius. I also think he did something that no other writer that I know does. And he doesn't block out a show and use 4x5 cards in the scene, and then we'll do this scene, and then this becomes this because that. He starts writing, and he has an idea, and he writes to get himself to an endpoint. And he's not sure how he's getting there.
Paints himself into a corner.
And
then he has to go and take a shower and think about it. And
that he has to get out of.
Right.
And by the way, as a director, I understand that, because there have been a lot of times where I've blocked myself into scenes whenever I first started directing. I thought, oh my God, what have I done here? I've blocked myself into a scene where I'm going to have to cover them here and then cover them here in a reverse. And so I have learned over the years how to block myself out of trouble and how to avoid those situations, which is also part of the reason I rehearse so much. Mm-hmm. As Michael said earlier,
I love rehearsing. Yeah,
I'll rehearse 3, 4, 5 times, and everyone's always anxious to put down marks so they can start lighting and get shooting, and they think that's faster. But it actually slows you up, because the worst thing that can happen is you don't rehearse and don't get everyone's commitment, every actor's commitment, the cameraman's actor, like everyone's commitment. This is the scene. This is how we're going to shoot it. Everybody okay? And as soon as I know all the actors say, yeah, we're good. Now we've all committed to shooting it this way. We're not going to do take 1 and then someone goes, this isn't working for me. Why am I crossing over here at this moment? So that's the reason I do so many, rehearsals before I mark. And even after I mark, I'll do a couple more rehearsals and just walk around the room and just watch it. Watch it from this side of the room, watch it from that side of the room, watch it from over here, because then it'll become clear to you
and you notice
where the camera should be.
Where the camera should be, but you also notice wherever you stand, the actors start playing towards you because you're the camera.
I have one question for you.
Yeah.
Actually, two. It's a two-parter. How many years have you been directing?
25 years.
Do you see yourself slowing down?
Yes, I love sleeping in. I like traveling and riding my motorcycles and flying my airplanes and
Those are a lot of fun things.
Enjoying my grandkids. But my thing now is I'm going to work if it's something I really want to do. And if it's not something I really want to do, I don't need to work.
That's fantastic.
It's a great place to be.
All right, grab your coffee, your matcha, your tea, whatever it is you're drinking.
Matcha latte.
Whatever you're brewing.
Ooh.
This is a segment we're growing to love. And we're playing a brand new game we call What Would Abby Do? WWAD. Would. So let's rack our brains together and figure out what the beloved NCIS character Abby Sciuto would do in these hypothetical situations. So, Dennis.
Yes.
Abby is stuck in a shipping container with a socially awkward Swedish man. How does Abby ease the tension to make their time in the container less unbearable?
Are you going to give us A, B, C, D?
No. Just it's open.
Oh.
How does Abby get the Swedish man to calm down in the container? I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
I'm glad you do, because I don't.
A calf pow.
A calf pow. Wow.
Maybe like a calf pow, I'm thinking.
But would she have a calf pow in the shipping container?
Maybe.
She always has one.
Yes, she does. What about the notion that she would tell a story from her childhood about when she and her dog Bubba were riding shotgun in the pickup truck? She's always telling those stories.
And she put him to sleep.
And she put him to sleep. Okay, here's the next one. There's a runaway train barreling down the railway tracks. On the tracks, there are 5 people tied up and unable to move. With the train headed straight for them, Abby is standing some distance away next to a lever. If she pulls this lever, the train will switch to a different set of tracks. However, she notices that there is one person on that side track. So she has 2 options, or she has options. Do nothing, in which case the train will kill 5 people on the main track. Or does she pull the lever, diverting the train, but her action will now kill this other person?
This is an impossible question.
In action, or if she does nothing, she witnesses the 5 people get killed. But if she activates something in the universe, only one person gets killed. What does Abby do?
I think she activates it and then tries to save the one person.
That's a really good answer. I think I'll join you. I'll join you there.
Somehow.
I think she closes her eyes really tight.
And goes, skip.
No, that's what I think it is.
Like,
she grabs the lever.
Genie, like just a,
and then there's a 3.5-page flashback.
Yeah.
And then we never know what she did.
know it. Oh yeah, that would be good construction. Okay, Abby is in an incredibly expensive Michelin-starred restaurant, and she's
hard to believe.
And she's having soup, but there is like a bug with a hair in the soup. What would Abby do?
She would take the bug out, rescue it, rinse it off in water, blow dry it herself.
Bring it back to life.
And then, yes. And then
make sure that bug was okay.
That's it.
I think she would take that bug, put it in a little napkin, in a fragile little napkin, and then she would put it under a microscope and go over it like a scientist and find out more about that bug.
So what we know she wouldn't do is call over the server and say,
send it back.
There's a bug in my soup. Or march into the kitchen and say, what kind of restaurant is this?
Right. She wouldn't throw a fit.
She would not throw a fit.
Oh, a bug.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting? I think that we all had the same thought, which is that she would want to be kind.
Yes.
To life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotta love Abby Sciuto. Well, anyway, thank you for playing What Would Abby Do?
Thank you for coming.
Dennis Smith.
Of course.
Thank you for being with us on Off Duty.
Off Duty.
My great pleasure.
It was great having Dennis here. We're going to move on to what we like to do, the fan questions.
Ooh.
As we have discussed many times, fans come to NCIS. It is not one specific group of people. You might make that mistake if you've never watched an episode of NCIS and you worked, say, in media. You might presume something that would be false about our television viewers. They are wildly different and a very diverse group, and they all share one thing in common. They love their NCIS. Oh, yes, they do. They watch a lot of it. They eat them like jelly beans. Who would you rather be stuck in a container with from the cast? And you can't say each other. So the fan wants to know who would you rather be, like who else in the cast would you be stuck in a container with?
I think Mark.
You'd be stuck with Mark?
I think because the few times that I've had, well, not the few times, many a time, I've had great conversations with Mark. We can go back and, you know, even though we don't think alike in a lot of things, there's a lot there that we can hold on to. And we share also a couple of values that are kind of neat, you know, that kind of work ethic thing. And I think he's really, at times he's really hard on himself. I think I can be hard on myself too.
So you'd be able to share and kind of really deepen.
But the truth is, I could be stuck in a container with pretty much anyone in this cast, and I would have a ball. I think I would have a lot of fun. I think if you were to ask me, who would I probably be surprised to be stuck in a container with? Probably Polly Pratt, because I think I would find out so much about her that would just blow my mind, you know, about her upbringing, about her relationships, about, for example, her relationship with her mom, which I know is very sacred to her. And so I think it would be a really fun thing to do too.
I would choose to be stuck with David McCallum.
Of course.
Because, first of all, it would just be lovely to be with him again.
Yes.
But I also know that guy knows a lot about movies. He was in some amazing movies, and I could just,
you had a lot of these conversations with him.
Geek out. I'd be stuck in a container. I'd drive him crazy. McCallum would have lost his mind to be stuck in a container with me, because I would have just kept going. I would have been like, David, tell me about The Hell Drivers with Sean Connery. He was in a movie called Hell Drivers. Yeah. And by the way, this is not a Sean Connery movie that many people know. He's in Billy Budd, which is an incredible film, Terrence Stamp's film debut.
Oh, I do love him.
All right. Which age is better, 20s, 30s, or 40s, or 50s? Why?
You know, I have an answer for that.
Oh, good.
I remember asking my mom, which has been your favorite decade? And I was always amazed at her answer. She said, it just gets better. And I have to say that for me, there's been amazing times in time periods, but it just keeps getting better.
It's the growth.
Yes, but it's also
the deepening.
But it's the example. My mom has been a real example of that. How everything, every decade comes with its own set of challenges for obvious reasons, and with its own set of incredible surprises. And there's not a single person that I ask that is older that wants to go back to a certain time. Of course, for obvious reasons, you want to revisit maybe youth in your 20s because, oh my God, I'd love to be in that body again, or I'd love to see my face again without wrinkles or whatever, you know? But I don't think a lot of people would trade the person that they are with the experience and all that comes with age just to revisit that youth, you know? And I think that's wonderful. I think it's a gift that my mom has always said it just gets better, because I'm always thinking, oh, it's just going to get better. I kind of trust that that's going to be the case.
You know, your mom said this hilarious thing at lunch once when we were back in season 3.
Dress me slowly.
I'm in a hurry.
Yes.
And she said it was
Napoleon
speaking to his valet, saying, dress me slowly. I'm in a hurry. He was getting ready, and he was hurrying. He needed to slow his roll, as they say, as the kids say.
Yes.
And there's a great lesson in that when I find myself rushing through life. Dress me slowly.
You always say that. And I always think, oh God, my mom dropped a little.
And so I am going to agree with you that your mom is a wise guru guide.
Oh, she's going to love this. And she's going to say, oh, Michael really loves me.
It's true. And
then she's going to want to call you.
That's fine.
Talk to you about
That's fine. But she, and I would agree too, at my tender age of 55, that I am amused by the synchronicities in life. I can say this because I won't be in this hotel room when this finally airs. I'm in room 2221, and it made me smile because I grew up in a house that was 2221 Cross Highway. And so, and you know, at this age, I see meaning in coincidence. I see, you know, when it's raining, I'm like, oh, it's so beautiful. And when it's sunny, I'm like, oh, that's so beautiful. When it snows, when it's cold, because we're here and then we're not. Got to enjoy things while we can.
I just getting teary-eyed again.
Of course.
So little it.
I'm going to give you this because this segment, every time we do it, it just brings a little ripple of joy into my pond. Gibbs rule, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for the Gibbs rule.
Which rule is this?
Number 3.
Ooh.
Never believe what you are told. Double check, which is a spin on the Reagan thing about, you know, trust, but verify. A little softer,
today.
but Gibbs is like, today. Don't trust, double check. It's like, oh, can I trust a little? No, never apologize. It's a sign of weakness. But I'm sorry.
Double check that.
Oh, Gibbs rules. Remember, there was a shirt that was given out as a crew gift one year with how all the Gibbs rules on it. Oh my God!
I think you sent me a picture of Sean wearing it as he's holding one of his babies. And
that's right.
And you were like, "Look at the shirt," and I was like, "Oh my God, what is that?" It was the Gibbs rules.
Yeah,
crazy.
There's a lot of rules. All right, I'm handing you this cue card because this is another fun thing where next week on.
Yes.
So next week on Off Duty. A Navy officer is abducted, and the case becomes urgent when the team learns she's one of a handful of people who know the route of a train carrying nuclear fuel rods. What's that? Who's who? Come find out. It's season 3, episode 13, Deception. Foof.